John Quincy Adams. Learn English through historical stories about U.S. presidents. Improve English. The story consists of 3 parts. Part 1, Early Life and Rise to Power. Part 2, Presidency. Part 3, Legacy and Reflections. If you found this video meaningful, please support the channel by giving it a like, subscribing, sharing with your friends, and don't forget to leave a comment below. Every little action from you is a big motivation for me to keep creating more valuable and heartfelt videos. Thank you very much. Part 1, Early Life and Rise to Power. Born to serve, raised to think, and destined to struggle between duty and democracy. Chapter 1, Son of a Revolution. John Quincy Adams was born on July 11th, 1767, in Braintree, Massachusetts, at a moment when the fires of revolution had just begun to flicker across the colonies. He was not born into an ordinary family. His father, John Adams, would soon rise to become one of the leading voices for independence and eventually the second president of the United States. From his earliest days, young John Quincy was steeped in the language of liberty, the echo of rebellion, and the responsibilities of statehood. As a boy, he sat in on intense political conversations, read diplomatic letters, and walked the very grounds of early American democracy before it had a name. Chapter 2, A Child Diploma. At just 10 years old, John Quincy accompanied his father to Europe, where he would spend much of his adolescence. While most boys his age played in fields, John Quincy stood in the courts of France, the Netherlands, and Russia, translating languages and absorbing diplomatic nuance. He was fluent in French and Dutch, and later learned German, Latin, and Greek. His education was global before the world even grasped the term. He enrolled in schools across Paris, Amsterdam, and Leiden, where he studied philosophy, history, and law. By the time he returned to America, he had seen more of Europe than most diplomats would in a lifetime. He later graduated from Harvard College in 1787, ranking second in his class. Chapter 3, A Mind Formed by Mission Young. Adams was introspective, intense, and often burdened by the weight of expectation. In his diary, kept almost daily from age 12 until his death, he often questioned the moral duties of public service, his role in history, and the fine line between ambition and virtue. He viewed his life as a tool for service, not fame, not fortune, duty. In his own words, duty is ours, results are God's. That guiding belief would shape every chapter of his life, often costing him popularity, but never his moral compass. Chapter 4, The Legal Scholar. Upon returning to Massachusetts, Adams studied law and passed the bar. He began practicing in Boston, where he earned a reputation for brilliance and rigor. He contributed essays and political writings to newspapers under the pen name Publicola, defending Washington's administration and arguing for strong but virtuous government. These writings caught the attention of President George Washington, who appointed the young Adams as minister to the Netherlands in 1794, making him the youngest U.S. ambassador ever. Chapter 5, Diplomatic Excellence. John Quincy Adams served on successive diplomatic posts in The Hague, Portugal, Prussia, and later under Presidents Jefferson and Madison in Russia and Britain. His greatest achievement came in 1814, when he helped negotiate the Treaty of Ghent, ending the War of 1812. His work secured peace and protected American sovereignty during a volatile period. He was widely respected abroad, even by America's former enemies. In Russia, Tsar Alexander I praised his honesty. In Britain, Lord Castlereagh admired his diplomacy. Wherever he served, Adams brought both clarity and integrity. Chapter 6, Secretary of State. In 1817, President James Monroe appointed Adams as Secretary of State, a role in which Adams thrived and made an indelible mark. He orchestrated the acquisition of Florida from Spain, resolved boundary disputes with Canada, and helped define the nation's Pacific Northwest claims through the Anglo-American Convention of 1818. But his crown jewel was the Monroe Doctrine, and an idea deeply shaped by Adams' worldview. Though Monroe delivered the speech, it was Adams who drafted the core principle: non-intervention by European powers in the Western Hemisphere. Adams believed deeply that America should lead by example, not conquest. Chapter 7, The Presidential Election of 1824. In 1824, Adams sought the presidency. He faced formidable opponents: Andrew Jackson, Henry Clay, and William H. Crawford. The election ended with no candidate receiving a majority of electoral votes. According to the Constitution, the decision fell to the House of Representatives. Clay eliminated from contention through his support behind Adams, who was then elected by the House. Soon after, Adams appointed Clay as Secretary of State, sparking accusations of a corrupt bargain from Jackson and his followers. Though no wrongdoing was ever proven, the stain lingered. Chapter 8, A President of Principle. Despite a rocky start, Adams brought to the presidency a towering intellect, unmatched experience, and unshakable ideals. Yet he was ill-suited for the rough-and-tumble politics of the era. He refused to campaign or curry favor. He believed the presidency should be earned through service, not spectacle. This moral rigidity, though noble, made him politically vulnerable in an age growing more democratic and populist. Chapter 9, Identity and Struggle. Adams struggled to find his political footing. He was a New England Federalist at heart, but the party had dissolved. He disliked party politics altogether, preferring the idea of national unity. But Jacksonian Democrats, fueled by grassroots fervor and suspicion of elites, painted Adams as out of touch, a cold intellectual in a nation craving firebrands. Even so, Adams continued to work tirelessly, believing in infrastructure, scientific advancement, and education as the foundations of national greatness. Chapter 10, Preparing for a Hard Presidency. His first and only term neared its end. Adams could feel the storm building. Jackson, charismatic and relentless, would challenge him in 1828. But Adams was ready, not for a fight, but for the struggle of principle. He knew the presidency was a fleeting platform. Ideas, however, could endure. His early life was not just preparation for office. It was a crucible of character, a formation that would outlast the vote count. And as he stepped into the fire of the presidency, John Quincy Adams carried with him not only his father's name, but the legacy of the Republic itself. Part 2, Presidency. He governed not for applause, but for the ages. Chapter 1, An Uneasy Inheritance. John Quincy Adams took the oath of office on March 4th, 1825, beneath cloud of celebration and controversy. No man had ever entered the presidency with a resume so rich. Minister to 5 nations, treaty, negotiator, senator, secretary of state. Yet, from the first moment, his legitimacy was questioned. The 1824 election had ended in deadlock. 4 candidates split the electoral vote, and Adams was chosen by the House of Representatives with the decisive backing of Henry Clay, who was later appointed Secretary of State. Though legal, the move led to accusations of a corrupt bargain. especially from the camp of Andrew Jackson, who had won the popular vote. The claim stuck. Adams was seen by many as having manipulated the system, a charge he deeply resented but never publicly countered. He believed his actions were constitutional and ethically clean, and he would not debase the office with partisan rebuttals. Chapter 2. A Visionary Plan for the Nation. Once in office, Adams turned his eyes to nation building. His first annual message to Congress laid out an ambitious vision for a great leap forward in infrastructure, science, education, and culture. He proposed a national university to cultivate leadership and knowledge, a naval academy to ensure maritime strength, construction of observatories to promote astronomy and science, expanded support for internal improvements, roads, canals, and ports to unify the country. A coordinated survey of America's natural resources and geography. He envisioned a nation not just of states, but of mind and mission, bound by ideas, not just borders. Yet this vision clashed with the political reality of the era. Chapter 3. A Wall of Resistance. The political winds had changed. Jacksonians dominated Congress, fueled by populist anger and regional distrust of federal power. To them, Adams represented elitism, Eastern snobbery, and intellectual arrogance. They blocked many of his proposals regardless of merit. Even the idea of observatories was mocked as luxuries for stargazers. The notion of a national university was painted as a threat to states' rights. Adams refused to pander or compromise on principle. He would not tailor policy to win votes. He believed leadership meant doing what was right, even if it meant standing alone. This noble rigidity, however, rendered him politically isolated. Chapter 4. Smears and Scandals as Opposition Hardened. Adams faced relentless personal attacks in the press. Jacksonian newspapers accused him of aristocratic sympathies, coldness, and even bizarre claims, like installing gambling tables in the White House, a lie. One publication accused him of having pimped an American girl to the Tsar of Russia during his diplomatic service. The claim was preposterous and cruel, but effective in poisoning public sentiment. Adams remained silent, refusing to descend into the mud. He believed responding would demean the office. But his silence was costly. The Sears stuck with a public increasingly distrustful of elites. Chapter 5. Governance without glory despite resistance. Adams achieved notable progress. He completed the Erie Canal, though initiated under Monroe, and strengthened the Smithsonian and American Antiquarian Society, negotiated trade treaties that expanded American commerce, improved federal surveys and land mapping for Western settlement. But his presidency lacked drama or war. It lacked spectacle. And in an age of rising Jacksonian populism, it seemed to lack emotional connection. Adams' speeches were brilliant, but dense. His governance was ethical, but uncharismatic. He governed for posterity, not politics. Chapter 6. The 1828 Campaign, a Battle of Worlds. By 1828, Jackson's supporters had built a vast network of popular support. Their campaign that year would become one of the dirtiest in U.S. history. Jackson was portrayed as the rugged hero of the common man. Adams, in contrast, was cast as a snobbish intellectual. While Jackson rode the wave of democracy's rise, Adams refused to campaign personally. He still believed in the 18th century ideal that the presidency should not be sought, only accepted. The election became a referendum on class, voice, and representation. Jackson won in a landslide, marking the dawn of a new democratic age. Chapter 7, Dignity in Defeat. Adams, wounded but proud, refused to attend Jackson's inauguration. It was not bitterness, but conviction. He believed the campaign had degraded the dignity of American politics. On March 4, 1829, Adams left the White House in silence. He did not return to Boston in triumph. There was no parade. No cheering crowds, just a man with burdens walking home with principles intact. But history was not finished with him. Chapter 8, Closing the Presidency, Opening the Future. For many, Adams' presidency was a failure. His legislative legacy was thin. His policies were visionary but unrealized. He was called aloof, imperious, and irrelevant. Yet over time, scholars would see that he had planted seeds not just for policy, but for the conduct of American leadership. He governed with integrity, refusing to trade, favors for votes, vision, believing government could elevate minds, courage, enduring attacks with stoicism, humility, accepting defeat with grace. He did not bend, and though he lost the office, he did not lose the cause. Chapter 9, A president measured by conscience. John Quincy Adams's presidency may not have built bridges or won wars, but it asked deeper questions. And what is government for? Can we lead without pandering? Should truth be sacrificed for popularity? His answers were not what the nation wanted, but perhaps what it needed. He believed history, not headlines, should judge a leader. And in that belief, he planted himself firmly in the lineage of Washington and Lincoln. Men not of the moment, but of the mission. Part 3, Legacy and Reflections. In death, as in life, he stood unyielding, unbending, undimmed. Chapter 1, The President Who Would Not Retire. When John Quincy Adams left the White House in 1829, many assumed his public life was over. But Adams had no interest in comfort or legacy tours. Instead, in an unprecedented act of humility and patriotism, he ran for Congress and won. In 1830, at the age of 63, Adams took his seat in the U.S. House of Representatives, becoming the only former president to return to federal elected office. For the next 17 years, he would serve not as an elder figurehead, but as one of the House's most active, fearless, and principled voices. He would later be called the Old Man Eloquent, a title earned not by age, but by the moral fire that animated every word he spoke. Chapter 2, The Battle Against Slavery and the Gag Rule. In Congress, Adams took up a cause that had long haunted the American conscience, slavery. Though not an abolitionist in his youth, Adams came to see slavery as the great moral crisis of the Republic. In the 1830s and 1840s, petitions flooded Congress from citizens, demanding the end of slavery. In response, pro-slavery legislators passed the Gag Rule, which automatically tabled any anti-slavery petition without discussion or vote. Adams was outraged. He saw the rule not just as a defense of slavery, but as a violation of the First Amendment. For 8 relentless years, Adams fought the Gag Rule. He introduced petitions, delivered speeches, and challenged its constitutionality. Southern legislators tried to censure him. They failed. In 1844, Adams succeeded. The Gag Rule was repealed. It was a historic triumph for free speech and a turning point in the moral awakening of Congress. Chapter 3, Scholar, statesman, mentor, even in old age, Adams maintained a vigorous intellect. He continued his lifelong diary, one of the most extensive and detailed personal records in American history. He read daily, supported public education, advocated for the Smithsonian Institution, and championed scientific advancement. He also mentored younger lawmakers, including a rising Illinois congressman named Abraham Lincoln. To Adams, knowledge was the soul of liberty. He once wrote, "The highest glory of the American Revolution was this. It connected, in one indissoluble bond, the principles of civil government with the principles of Christianity." He believed a republic's strength lay not just in laws, but in educated, principled citizens. Chapter 4. Death on Duty. On February 23rd, 1848, while seated in the House chamber, Adams suffered a massive cerebral hemorrhage, a stroke. He collapsed mid-session. Members of Congress rushed to his side. He was carried to the Speaker's room, where he lay unconscious for 2 days. On February 23rd, 1848, John Quincy Adams died at the age of 80, having served the nation until his final breath. His last words, according to witnesses, were, "This is the last of earth. I am content." Chapter 5. A funeral fit for a statesman. Adams's death shocked the nation. Though never beloved in a partisan sense, he was respected across the aisle for his unshakable integrity. His body lay in state in the Capitol Rotunda, an honor reserved for the most revered statesman. The funeral procession stretched through Washington, where citizens wept openly and lawmakers from every party paid tribute. He was buried in Quincy, Massachusetts, in the family crypt beneath United First Parish Church, beside his parents John and Abigail Adams, and later joined by his wife Louisa. Chapter 6. The Arc of History. In his own time, Adams' presidency was seen as a failure, but his post-presidential service transformed his legacy. Historians now regard him as one of the most morally courageous leaders in U.S. history, someone who stood for justice when it was unpopular, who defended free speech under attack, and who refused to be a spectator to injustice. He is remembered as a brilliant diplomat who helped end the War of 1812 and shaped U.S. borders, a visionary statesman who imagined a national university and scientific infrastructure, a fearless congressman who battled slavery long before it became common cause, a scholar and diarist who left an unmatched record of the early republic's soul. Chapter 7. Living Legacy. John Quincy Adams's influence endures. Numerous schools, libraries, and towns bear his name. His diary, spanning over 60 years, is a treasure of historical insight. The Smithsonian Institution, which he fought for, remains a beacon of American knowledge. His example of post-presidential service inspired future leaders to remain active in civic life. Perhaps most importantly, Adams taught the nation that leadership is not about popularity, but principle. Chapter 8. What he left us. John Quincy Adams never sought fame. He saw public service as sacred, truth as non-negotiable, and conscience as the compass of government. He endured ridicule, loss, defeat, and yet remained unbowed. He is proof that the arc of history bends toward those who dare to stand alone, and that defeat in the moment can become victory in memory. His words still echo. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Adams inspired. He endured. He elevated the office he once held and a nation he never stopped serving. If you found this video meaningful, please support the channel by giving it like, subscribing, sharing with your friends, and don't forget to leave a comment below. Every little action from you is a big motivation for me to keep creating more valuable and heartfelt videos. Thank you very much.